Have you ever wondered what it's like to live here in the Nocatee, Florida community? Maybe you've heard about the amazing resort-style water park amenities right behind me, or maybe you just heard about how amazing the schools are here in Nocatee. Either way, in this video, we're going to give you a driving tour of the Nocatee community and go through just why people choose to make this the premier community to move to here in the Jacksonville, Florida general area. Let's get right on into it now. All right, so as we start on our neighborhood tour of Nocatee, Florida, the first thing we want to kind of go over is, what is Nocatee? Nocatee is actually one of the best-selling master plan communities, not just here in Jacksonville or the general Northeast Florida area, but also the whole US. And a lot of reasons for that we're going to dive into throughout this video, but ultimately it has become a huge attraction for people locally as well as throughout the country when it comes to where to move to here in Florida. But overall, Nocatee is about 15,000 acres in total, so it's a very large area, and it's between Jacksonville and St. Augustine, so parts of Nocatee are going to be in the Jacksonville, Duval County zip code, while most of Nocatee is going to be in that St. Johns County zip code, as well as county. But also with it, you also do see that of those 50,000 acres, over 60% of it was kept as conservation area. So whereas we see some of these other new construction master plan communities, we see a lot of it's clear cut. With Nocatee, you do see a lot of overgrown trees, a lot of nature still, and they've incorporated that a lot into their designing of the community. Now, the developer of the community was the Park Group. They are well known throughout the area here as a group that has developed Nocatee. They've developed eTown. They've also done some development with Glen Kernan, one of our more higher end gated golf course communities. And so they're very well known around the Jacksonville area as a developer that focuses on lifestyle. And that is why when people live in Nocatee, it's all about living the Noc life, as they say. And that does include, being a golf cart community where people are constantly going to be on their golf carts, as you'll see throughout this video as well. So that's a little bit of what Nocatee is. Now, as far as for the history of Nocatee, believe it or not, Nocatee first got into that development stage as a community in 2001. So, we're talking, over 20 plus years ago is really when the vision of what Nocatee is today first started. Now, in 2005, they broke ground with Nocatee Parkway. It was cost at the time of about $135 million or so to build Nocatee Parkway, but what it did is it connected US 1 to the west, all the way out to the Ponte Vedra Beach area to the east, and really made it a thoroughfare, so to speak, for people to be able to get east and west without having to go up to Butler Boulevard or all the way down where Villano is, which just didn't make sense logistically. So that was a huge benefit, not just to the Nocatee area, but also for any St. Johns County residents across the board. So that in itself, made a huge difference. From there in 2010, we started to see the development of the Nocatee water parks, which are very well known at this point, around town, but also the Nocatee Town Center, and the first homes were starting to get built as well in 2010. Now, you may think, okay, well, if it started in 2010, why are we still building out there to this day? And when Nocatee was developed, it was developed with a 25-year vision. But that 25-year vision actually really held true and pushed past that a little bit. Really, honestly, for a big component, that was unplanned on at the beginning, which was the recession that we saw in 07, 08. And with that recession, you saw the development of Nocatee pretty much come to a standstill for a couple of years. And that made a huge impact on the timing of Nocatee being finished, as well as how it's been developed to this point with what the focus has been on for future phases. Now though, from 2010 to 2020, we saw the development of Nocatee skyrocket. And honestly, during that 10-year period, we saw 4 to 5 times as many homes being built year over year than we did in those years prior. And since COVID, we've really seen that skyrocket as well, to the point now where there's only about 92% of the community has been built out, with that last 8% being mainly in the Seabrook area with reflections. within Nocatee. And then you do have a couple others finishing up, like Crosswinds, that if you want to know more about as far as Reflections, Seabrook, Crosswinds, Coral Ridge to some degree as well, any of those neighborhoods that are the last couple here in Nocatee, you just gotta reach out to me with a call, a text, an email. It's gonna be on the screen, or in the description of this video, you can reach out to me. I'll have a link to my calendar in it as well. Always happy to help answer any questions. So as we move to the next part, which is away from more the development of Nocatee, we're gonna move now towards the builders of Nocatee. And what really makes Nocatee stand out across the board is the diversity of builders that you have gotten in here over the years. You know, some neighborhoods that we look at here in the Northeast Florida area, you know, the Jacksonville area, the St. Augustine area, you know, a lot of times the neighborhoods that you'll look into or communities, sometimes it's just one builder. You know, an example, or two builders. An example of this is, you know, the Rivertown community, which is predominantly gonna be Mattamy homes with a flavor of Toll Brothers, and there's a small flavor of Mastercraft as well over there. But for the most part, it's mainly been Mattamy. You also see this in Seven Pines, another master plan community just to the north, where the builders in there right now are just ICI Homes and David Weekley Homes. Well, with Nocatee though, we saw pretty much every national and local builder you can think of has had their finger on, you know, a section of Nocatee. And so whether if it was D.R. Horn, if it was Mattamy, Pulte with their Del Webb 55 and up areas, Toll Brothers, Riverside, ICI, Dosty, Dreamfinders, you know, just to name a handful, you know, Mastercraft again, you know, overall, Providence, I don't know how I can forget about Providence, but Providence, David Weekley, if I haven't said that yet. Just so many to kind of list that sometimes you can forget which ones were actually in there. So what that brought is that brought a lot of neighborhood diversity as far as the way that some of the homes are designed. Now, at the end of the day, the developer did kind of keep things within certain restrictions, but in general, you do see different design focuses with each builder within each neighborhood or section of Nocatee. So that was a huge benefit, in my opinion, for the area, and really what has helped make it stand out up to this point, because if you were looking for new construction, you had options with many different floor plans to choose from, depending on which builder, you know, you gravitated towards with the most. So that was a huge factor in the development of Nocatee and really what Nocatee is here today. Now, as we move on to, you know, talking about the different neighborhoods that are within Nocatee, you may ask yourself, well, what do you mean, Justin? Isn't Nocatee the neighborhood? And that is one discrepancy that sometimes people get confused on is, you know, when you live in Nocatee, you're living in a community. The community is Nocatee. You know, it's its own little town, so to speak, even though it's not seen as a town, economically. And so with Nocatee, you know, you have different neighborhoods or clustered areas that people tend to focus on. You know, to the north of Nocatee, we're gonna have our 20-mile area. And within 20 Mile, another cool caveat right now, and this is one of their other last spots that they are building in, is they have the River Landing section within 20 Mile. So again, it's like a neighborhood within a neighborhood within a community. It can get a little confusing. But with River Landing, what's really cool about it, and you'll see it on, you know, on this video as well, is that some of the home sites in River Landing are waterfront home sites that are actually up against the Intercoastal Waterway. So that makes a huge impact. It also makes a huge impact on purchase price and money needed. You know, waterfront is never gonna be the most affordable product here in Northeast Florida. But overall, River Landing gave people another outlet for something they hadn't normally seen here in Nocatee, which was a bring your own builder situation. You know, in general, with a lot of these neighborhoods in Nocatee, when people were building, you know, you were limited to the builders who were for that specific neighborhood or section within Nocatee. So for instance, right now, you know, if you're looking over in the Reflections, you know, the Reflections, you have 6 builders to choose from. You know, you have Toll Brothers, you have Providence, you have ICI, you have Dosty, you have Riverside, and you have David Weekley. You know, if you didn't want one of those 6 builders, you know, you don't have any other options. You have to work with one of those 6 if you want to be in that section of Nocatee. Well, with River Landing, you have the ability to bring your own builder, and it allows for a more custom product on more estate style lots over there. So that has been a big impact for people to give them something different compared to what we're used to seeing here in Nocatee. But you have your 20-mile section, 20-mile area or neighborhood section to the north of Nocatee. 20 Mile is one of the most desirable areas up there, but that is going to have multiple sub neighborhoods within it. You also have Coastal Oaks, which is just to the south of the town center. And Coastal Oaks is gonna give you, a gated community with a guard gate, pretty much one of the only ones that have that here in Nocatee that's not a 55 and up. Speaking of that though, across the street from Coastal Oaks is gonna be your Del Webb Ponte Vedra. We actually have two Del Webbs here in Nocatee, Del Webb Ponte Vedra and Del Webb Nocatee, both built by Pulte. But overall, you have Coastal Oaks to the south. Further south from there, you're gonna also have Crosswater. That takes you to the the newer K-8 school, down the southern part of Nocatee. To the west, you're gonna have the Reflections and Seabrook, and then also to the west of 20 Mile is actually where you're gonna have Greenleaf Village, which was one of the first neighborhoods, along with Austin Park next to it, to be built here in Nocatee. So overall, I mean, a lot of times when it comes to, where should I look in Nocatee, Justin, it really comes down to, what kind of drive time, what kind of golf cart time do you want to get to the Nocatee Town Center, where you have your Publix and your restaurants and your shops, grocery stores. So overall, that's gonna be the key factor, but also depending on the age of house you're looking for, that'll also play a big role on which section of Nocatee you end up in. Another thing to think of too when you're deciding on where Nocatee you want to be located also comes down to how close or how far away do you want to be from the Nocatee amenities. Now you're going to see throughout this video, we're going to show those Nocatee amenities, and they're pretty extensive. You have the splash park and you have the spray park. Spray park is more for little kids. That's going to be more of an attraction for the younger kids. But then you have the splash park, where you're going to have your lap pool. You're going to have your lazy river. You're going to have some slides as well over there as well into the pool. Kind of a cool thing. And you also have a zip line that goes through it. So you have a lot of attraction there with the multiple pools and splash park and spray park. But you also do have tennis courts, you have pickleball courts, and you'll see in this video that there's tons of people that are constantly playing pickleball down here in different leagues and whatnot as well. And you have basketball courts too. And so with that, what they did, which I think was super smart when they developed Nocatee, is they built trails throughout the whole area to where you can golf cart without being on a major road or next to a major road to get to those amenities. And next to the amenities, not too far away, is also your shopping and restaurants and whatnot. So that is where you'll see tons of parking for golf carts only throughout all of Nocatee. It's really one of the only areas here in Northeast Florida, here in Jacksonville area, that you see that. And I always get a kick out of it, but people use it and it is a very popular thing across the board. So that's where, with Nocatee, the amenities play a very big role. It's really why a lot of people choose to want to live and be in Nocatee. But also when you're deciding on what neighborhood or section to be in within Nocatee, it's a big piece to take into account. Because honestly, when you're more towards the southern area near Crosswater or Crosswinds, it's going to be a little bit of a longer distance, even with a golf cart, to get to those amenities compared to if you're in like a Coastal Oaks or even other sections like Austin Park. So just something to take into account when deciding on what part you want to be in. So obviously the amenities are going to be a big attraction for people here in Nocatee, but also the other big attraction are the schools. You have multiple K-8s here, including Pine Island and Palm Valley academies. We have multiple other schools either in the works or projected in the future to one day be planned out and built. And obviously the high school right now is going to be Nice High School, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we see another high school pop up as the population here in Nocatee grows. Because currently Nocatee has around 25,000 people that live within the community. But as we finish up the community, that number is going to go up some. And so with it, again, it's going to bring more kids and the need potentially for more schools, which the developer has all that pretty much planned out with their master planned development with it. But overall, that is another big piece to know, is depending on which K-8 year you want to be able to have your kids go to, that will also play a critical role on which section in Nocatee or which neighborhood Nocatee you choose to make your own. But overall, these schools per grade school are all going to be A-rated schools. that can always change, so always would suggest to check it out yourself just to see where they're at right now. But that is one thing Nocatee is known for, is for having some of the best public schools here in the state of Florida. So a lot of times with some parts of Jacksonville even, where people might think more private school for their kids, in Nocatee, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna see people focusing more towards public school because of just how good these schools are here. And a little bit of a shout out for Nice High School, that is where Tim Tebow played at before he went to the University of Florida. And so, that's a little bit of our claim to fame to some degree, but overall, it's one of those things that, we like to always bring up. So that's a little bit about the schools. So as we, begin to wrap up our tour of Nocatee, it kind of brings up the idea of, where are we heading here with Nocatee? It's kind of a crazy stat, but in 2011, Nocatee only sold 62 homes, new construction homes. Nowadays, we see that in a month. And what that means is these last couple of phases of Nocatee with new construction are not going to last long. That last 8% of homes to be built, we're talking only a couple years left. So if you're watching this video and you want to be in Nocatee, but you only want new construction, now's the time. All you gotta do is call me, text me, email me, and we can get a good solid game plan together to determine which builder makes the most sense for you and which neighborhood that's left makes the most sense for you. Because again, I would hate for you to miss your ability to get new construction in Nocatee before it's gone. But as Nocatee finishes up the construction on the residential side, does not mean that they're gonna be done across the board. Nocatee is still going to invest heavily into the roads, into the parks, into the common areas. We will see some additional commercial come in, here and there as well, to really finalize and finish up the community as a whole. But there will always be a constant, constant draw for the community to keep it in its pristine condition and keep things looking as nice as possible. And that includes the infrastructure that makes up Nocatee. It's why Nocatee does have one of the higher community development district fees to live in Nocatee compared to other master plan communities here in Northeast Florida. But it's well worth it when you think about the amenities you get with the water parks, the splash park, stuff like that, as well as obviously their commitment to, keeping Nocatee in its pristine condition. It's also, as mentioned before, the fact that, 60% of Nocatee is going to stay natural is huge, because it really does have an impact on the feel, the aesthetic of living in Nocatee. So that becomes a big draw there. But moving forward, if it does not mean that, again, if you're looking to move here to Nocatee, but it's a couple years out and you may not have the chance for new construction, that's still okay. There's always going to be a healthy amount of resales with how large the community Nocatee is. And ultimately it just comes down to, again, the same thing, getting a plan in place to ensure that, if there's a specific builder you liked, we can still find those as resales. I have to do a little bit more digging, but we can figure out which homes were built by which builders. And then it just comes down to figuring out if that owner did design choices that were similar to what you would want for you and your family. And then obviously take into account, how far close you are to the schools and to the amenities is a big piece as well. But ultimately, as we move forward, into our transition of Nocatee being, developed all the way and built out, I would take it as a positive, not a negative, and it really is going to allow Nocatee to really end up being what everyone has always wanted to be and what it's been up to this point, but really to a finalized state. So I think that would be a great feature. But overall, if you have any questions on this video, do not hesitate to give me a call, a text, an email. I am born and raised here in Jacksonville, and so I love to always go over all the different communities, all the different builders, and help make your move here to Jacksonville as least stressful as possible. That's why people reach out to me all the time, and why I work with them, as they build with builders or as they look for homes here in Jacksonville, to ensure that they have everything in line to fit their lifestyles, wants, and needs once they are officially residents here. But overall, I will see you guys in our next video, and we'll go from there. Till next time.